Hi, my name is Jenna Thompson, and this is my grammar key presentation on number 6, prepositions. This is the outline of what I'm going to talk about. What are prepositions? How are they used? Why are prepositions so difficult for ELLs to learn? Common prepositions as well as problem prepositions, native language interference, how to teach prepositions, and exercises for preposition practice. What is a preposition? According to Falsey, a preposition is a word that shows the relationship between a noun or a pronoun and the rest of the words in the sentence. Prepositions are extremely difficult for ELLs to learn, and prepositions are actually one of the last things that ELLs acquire in English. Why are prepositions so difficult for English language learners? Individual prepositions do not translate well from one language to another. One language may require a preposition after a certain word, but another language does not. And one language does not use prepositions as we do in English. They're also difficult because prepositions are often used in idioms, and idioms, by definition, defy translation. It also takes a very long time to master prepositions because there are so many different prepositions and each one has several meanings and multiple usages. The 7 most common prepositions are of, to, in, for, on, at, and from. I had a little bit of difficulty trying to figure out how to find these words as prepositions in the COCA, but once I figured out how to identify the parts of speech, I was able to find these and was surprised by the high frequency of, to, and in. I expected to and on to be more frequent than others, but obviously of and to are the most frequent prepositions. Combining a preposition with its object, which is a noun or a pronoun, and the adjectives or articles makes a prepositional phrase. So for example, on Tuesday is a prepositional phrase because on is the preposition and Tuesday is the noun. In the middle is a preposition, an article, and a noun. And then at a secret location is a preposition, an article, an adjective, and a noun. All 3 of these are prepositional phrases. The most common prepositions on pages 164 to 167 in Falsey's handbook, you can see 1, 2, and 3 word prepositions, as well as using at, on, or in for place and time. I found the diagram on page 167 to be very helpful with figuring out how to use at, on, or in the appropriate places for place or time, depending on if it's a small place or time to a bigger place or time. Special idiomatic phrases, such as in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, at night. Idiomatic phrases have to be memorized. There's no other way to learn them besides memorization. These are just for examples of idioms. And if you look on page 175 in Falsey's handbook, he actually has a list of 40 common idioms. And usually reading and content material does have idioms in them, so they can pick them up from there, but they do have to be memorized for usage of prepositions. Problem prepositions. This is a big issue with native language learners. Problem prepositions include for versus since, which is especially problematic for Spanish speakers. For is used with a period of time, and That's because we use for to answer the question, how long? With for, the answer would be, I've worked here for 10 years. And since, we use since with the name of the start of the time, which we answer the question, how long? With since, the answer is the period of time, such as I've worked here since 2000. So if the student said they visited France since 2 weeks, that would be incorrect. They should say they visited France for 2 weeks. Before versus ago, which is especially problematic for Arabic speakers. We use before with the name of a specific point of time, and we use ago with the name of a period of time. A speaker could say, my parents called me before 2 days, which is incorrect, and they should say, my parents called me 2 days ago. In versus future, versus after, for future time. In, when talking about future, we use in with a general period of time, such as when will something happen? And then when talking about the future, we use after with the name of a period of time. We would want to answer when specifically will something happen. One example could be the new cars will be available after 2 weeks. Well, that's incorrect. It needs to be the new cars will be available in 2 weeks. For versus during. We use for with a general period of time. We use for to answer the question, how long? And then we use during with the name of a period of time, which we use to answer the question, when? If you said they visited France during 2 weeks, that would again be incorrect. You would need to say they visited France for 2 weeks. Verbs of motion. Enter, go, and return. Enter, we do not use a preposition after enter. Go, you should always use to or sometimes in when using the preposition go. When using the verb go. And then return, you have to use to when you use return. Such as the students will return to their country in 2 more weeks, instead of they will return their country in 2 more weeks. You can't leave out those prepositions because then the sentence doesn't make sense. Adjectives, nouns, and verbs with preposition combinations. Many adjectives, nouns, and verbs must be followed by a certain preposition for no apparent or logical reason. On pages 172 to 174, there are lists of many of these combinations, 56 adjective and prepositions, 43 noun, and 30 verb. The 3 techniques that are used to teach these are rote memorization, direct teacher instruction followed by practice, and massive exposure to them through extensive reading. The first 2 techniques are used for ELL students who are in a time crunch or don't have the time to devote to extensive reading. Native language interference with prepositions. All languages struggle with stranding, which is when a preposition can be separated from the object and occur at the end of an utterance. In English, we would say, what are you waiting for? But in other languages, they would say, for what are you waiting? Even when one preposition seems to be the same in both languages, usage may differ greatly. And the difference between at, on, and in, they may be expressed by 1, 2, or 3 or more prepositions in other languages. No other language uses these prepositions like English does. Specific native language interference with prepositions. Arabic, they often misuse in and after for future and ago/began for past. In Chinese, they have both postpositions and prepositions. Japanese has postpositions, but not prepositions. And Spanish overuses in because the Spanish preposition en looks like English's in. Teaching prepositions to English language learners. Folsey didn't have a whole lot of teaching techniques in this section, but he did focus on what the students would learn and what the progression is of learning. So beginning students, they're working on common prepositions such as under, in, or on. You could bring a ball into the classroom and move it around the classroom. Have them put it under the table, on the desk, in the cubby, under the chair, things like that, so that they see where the ball is in relation to what the word is. Intermediate students are starting to deal with confusing pairs, such as since versus for versus during, in versus after, which is for future, than versus that, and before versus ago. Upper intermediate / advanced students are becoming familiar with verbs, adjectives, and nouns that combine with certain prepositions, such as excel in. Advanced students are reviewing and consolidating the multitude of preposition information. Time is one of the biggest teaching techniques for prepositions. Extensive time given more for the opportunity for the students to learn about prepositions, to absorb the information, and to have practice with it. Not necessarily devoting more time to instruction, but to practice memorization and allow them the time to absorb the information. Visualization and illustration. Some prepositions, it's obviously easier to have a visual representation so students see what a preposition means in a sentence and what it looks like. This website I found had a very interesting presentation on prepositions and has kind of a Venn diagram in the center of the page, and as you click through the pages, it moves the words to where they would be on a circle. For example, the word in, it starts throwing the word in inside the circle so you see it. It'll put the word under the circle. Out of starts moving away and has an arrow going away. So does from and away from. Through has an arrow going through the circle with the word with it. So this would be a really good idea to show to ELLs who are having difficulty understanding what the prepositions mean. Practice. It needs to be constant, repetitive, and meaningful. Action research project on page 150 in the workbook would be really useful for ELLs to see how the prepositions in their native languages differ from those in English and to better understand why they're having issues understanding the English prepositions. Modeling, always model the correct usage of prepositions and point them out in conversation when available. For preposition practice, there are exercises on 141 to 150, and this is the list that was most helpful to me. 3.6.20 on page 146 is also useful for ELLs, not just for their teachers. And these are my references. If you have any questions, feel free to ask and I will try my best to answer them. And if you have any other teaching techniques, I would be really glad to hear them and understand more about that. Thanks.